All right, everybody, we are back for another edition of College Football Focus. We are still working through our conference previews. We have touched on the ACC and the Big Ten. Today, we are going to get into the SEC with a very special guest. But before we do that, for those of you watching on YouTube, if you could hit the like or subscribe button, that would be outstanding. You'll also get some notifications. And for those of you listening on whatever podcast service you have, subscribe to the podcast as well. And that way you won't be left in the dark when we have a new one. Like I said, we are going to talk SEC football today, and we have Jake Crain from Crain and Company back again to join us as our guest. Jake, how you doing?
Man, I'm doing fantastic, Mike. Thanks for having me back. And maybe if we blink twice and click our heels together, we'll be at kickoff. But we just got to make it to SEC Media Days first, I guess.
Yes, certainly. That would be outstanding. How's fatherhood treating you?
Best thing ever. People ask me to describe it all the time, and the best way I can put it is, if you think you've ever truly loved anything in your life, wait till you have a child, and you'll really experience what that is. She's 5 months and 7 days actually, as of today.
Okay.
She can sit up. She's looking around. She's making noise, making a lot of noise. She is her father's daughter, but thank God in the heavens she looks like her mother. That's what we're all rooting for.
That's what I always said when we had ours. It's like you got mom's looks, and maybe you got a little bit of my smart ass, and that would be kind of like the
There you
perfect.
go. I'm in this. We're paddling in the same boat down the same river, man.
There you go. Anyway, yes, we are going to talk about the SEC. I guess first thing, just what are maybe a couple of overarching storylines that you're really kind of intrigued to see how they unfold this season in the SEC?
Well, I think the biggest one is you've got, and really this isn't just the SEC, it's all of college football. You have so many new quarterbacks at big time brands. And I'm not talking about just coming to the transfer portal. And it's funny when you look around the league, you start calling DJ Lagway and Lenora Sellers veterans compared to what
Yeah,
we're seeing. Obviously, Gunnar Stockton got some play in really big moments at the end of last year for Georgia. So he's a little bit, used to the fire more than, let's say, an Arch Manning or a Ty Simpson in Alabama. You look at Tennessee, I mean, hell, by the end of this thing, I may be playing quarterback for him. So I think the overarching narrative is, how are these new quarterbacks going to be at these big time brands? And outside of that, I think, it's about as wide open, Mike, as I can remember it. When you look at who can win the league, I know a lot of people are leaning toward LSU because of Nussmeier and the experience that they have, but they got to show it on defense too, man. And as with every football season, you're going to have surprises, good and bad. But I'm really excited because I feel like the league is as wide open as it's been since I can remember, and that's great for college football and great for college football fans and media
yeah,
guys like us.
yeah. There's definitely something to be said for going into a weekend not knowing who's going to win all the games. If you know that,
For
okay,
sure.
we got a 35-0 here, it's fine. We'll watch it, but it's not nearly as exciting when there's some intrigue. So let's get started. We will hit on Alabama first. Of course, they last year thought that they were had a case for the college football playoff. They were ultimately left out. They have to replace Jalen Milroe, longtime starter. But I really think that Jam Miller in the backfield, he seems a little bit underrated, and he's a solid weapon. And I think they're going to ride him and the ground attack while the quarterback settles in. What is your read on Alabama?
Well, I agree with you. We just had our buddy Josh Pate on to do a full Alabama preview over on our YouTube channel on Crain and Company. And I think when you look at Alabama and their struggles to run the ball last year, it's not that they weren't talented up front, but I think Jalen Milroe kind of improv a little bit too much. I mean, especially in the RPO game, when you look at it, they didn't really commit to the run outside of the quarterback. And when you do that, you don't have balance. I think one of
Right.
the biggest positives that you'll see from Ty Simpson is that there's not going to be a lot of RPO stuff. Not that he can't run. I'm not saying he's Stephen Hawking, but at the end of the day, he's not nearly what they've had or a true dual threat quarterback. So the run game is going to be more ironclad. When they call a handoff, they're going to hand it off. And I think it'll give Alabama some more balance and then open up some things down the field. And make no mistake, A lot of people, I think that guys like Ryan Grubb and Sarkisian and Lane Kiffin, they just want to throw the ball around the whole time. That's not what they want to do. Alabama's going to try and run the ball. I think they're going to try and run it early against Florida State, and that gives your offensive line some more cohesion. So it could
Mhm.
be a net positive for Bama at the end of the day. And you look at the roster around Ty, I think Alabama and Ohio State are about as talented as anybody else around a new starting quarterback in the country, which should be able to ease him into it as much as you can get eased into it when you're going to Doak the first game of your career as a starter.
Right, and the defense was a top 10, top 15 unit last year. They lost a few pieces, but I really like that secondary.
Yeah.
You that they've got some young guys, but they shown Bray Hubbard especially as a guy that I'm watching this year to make another incremental leap. He really sort of popped in his first real substantial playing time. Is this a defense you think can get back to the level that it was when Saban was there, maybe being like a top 2, 3, 4 unit?
Well, nothing would surprise me when you recruit the way that Alabama does on the defensive side of the ball. And you bring up the secondary, you do feel like going into the year, at least, that's going to be the strength of their defense, which isn't necessarily a great thing, Mike. I would rather be a lead up front and have
Mm-hmm.
a couple questions about the back end because I can hide an average secondary with an elite front seven. But what I'm more interested in is who's going to be the next up on that Alabama defensive line, because I think a lot of people assume that, guys coming in as five-star freshmen are going to be great, but on the line of scrimmage, it takes longer there to develop than any other place. That's what made guys like Dylan Stewart at South Carolina or Colin Simmons at Texas, or remember even Will Anderson at Bama,
Mm-hmm.
very rare. There's a lot more wide receivers coming out of high school that are ready to play than defensive ends. But I actually wonder if the collection in the front seven is going to be more consistent, maybe minus the superstar, because it seems like there is a lot of just good talent there that'll stay in their gap, that are going to do what they're supposed to do, and then eventually develop that elite, ability off the edge to speed up quarterbacks and throw it up to that talented secondary.
Right. A guy like up front, I like Tim Keenan a lot. I think that he's a guy who
He's a
may have some
returner
star potential.
about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he's got to
Yeah.
be the leader of that front. I think you're exactly right. He's one of those rare guys that is able to plug the run, but also be pretty daggum good rushing the passer from any spot on the defensive line.
Right. Um, so next up is Arkansas. It's been a little bit tumultuous for Sam Pittman. They've maybe surprised a little bit, both positive and negative. They really kind of are going to look new to me anyway at skill players. They went heavy into the portal. They got Mike Washington out of Buffalo, and then Raylan Sharp and Omega Blake are some receivers they got.
Mhm.
But the guy for me who I really like watching play, and I wish there were more of him on this defense, is Xavier Sori at linebacker. He's a guy who just is all over the field, and you can't help but notice him when he is out there. What are you thinking about Arkansas this year? I think they're one of the hardest teams for me to get a handle on.
Well, the biggest problem is that schedule's like getting waterboarded with gasoline. I
Yeah.
mean, you could go out there and play well and go 5-7. And again, most of the talk's going to be about Taylon Green. And you look at his upside, it's incredible. His just natural ability and that size. But the beautiful thing about the game of football is you have to be balanced as a team. It's the overall look. You bring Xavier Sori up. You talk about a guy that looks the part, high ranked guy coming out of high school, is really coming to his own at Arkansas. But I'm worried about the depth, Mike, because at the
Yeah.
end of the day, it's not your first 22 that gets you to the dance. It's your first 46 to 50. And while Arkansas can put a good 11 out there, if they don't just catch lightning in the bottle on the injury front, I think by the time we get to the meat in the middle of this schedule, there could be some problems. And who knows, good or bad, this could be the last hurrah for Sam Pittman. But I would not be surprised if you saw Arkansas struggle from a depth standpoint once we get to week 5 and week 6.
Yeah, in depth. If you're not recruiting like an Alabama or Ohio State or a
Tough.
Georgia, that's going to be a concern for just about everybody.
Yeah. You
Uh,
can't be a fast food restaurant and only sell French fries, man.
Correct. Although if they're good, I will buy them.
Yeah. Well,
So
you just described Arby's, so I'm with you on that.
yes, curly fries. You gotta love those. Program near and dear to your heart,
Hmm.
Auburn. Um, they really, as if they didn't have enough riches at receiver, they had a couple of great freshmen last year. They add in Eric Singleton, so there are zero excuses for Jackson Arnold not to thrive, especially behind a very good offensive line.
Yeah.
Love Connor Lew, love Jeremiah Wright, and I think the secondary could be sneaky good. Kayan Lee is a guy that I've really thought could be a next level type player.
Yeah, I mean, look, Jackson Arnold, the thing is you don't have to be Batman. You just got to be a really good Robin. You just got to take what the defense gives you, let your offensive line give you that run game, which last year, Mike, I mean, Auburn was as predictable as ever on offense because the passing
Mm-hmm.
game just wasn't there, yet they were still able to run the ball with a lot of success. So, if Jackson can just put the ball in the spots they need to be in, you could find yourself getting some single coverage. Because look, it's like playing the Golden State Warriors back when they were launching threes and everybody could shoot outside of Draymond. You can't double everybody. So if you're going to try and bracket on each side and put 2-on-1 with Cam Coleman on one and 2-on-1 with Eric Singleton in the other, I think a guy like Malcolm Simmons could
Mm-hmm.
absolutely flourish in the slot. And you get a lot of matchups. You look at tight end, you'll get some good matchups there, maybe with no safety help. So yeah, Jackson Arnold's just got to be able to run the offense. What I'm interested to see is early how Hugh calls plays. How many RPO attachments will there actually be? Because I thought Auburn got real cute when they shouldn't have last year. I mean, look at the
Right.
Oklahoma game in the second half, for example. So going to Baylor is going to be a good test. But overall, it's the best roster I think they've had on the Plains in 5 years. The depth in the front seven worries me a little bit. If you haven't seen DeMarcus Riddick, who was a freshman last year, he's going to be a sophomore
Mm-hmm.
this year at Mike or inside backer where they put him at Mike or Will. He's an absolute stud. That first group they're going to roll out there, and the D line's pretty freaking good. Keldrick Falk's going to be a top 5 pick. But if they get down to the barrel in that defensive line, I'm a little bit worried.
Yeah, that's those guys. Falk especially is another guy who Auburn has just quietly churned out guys up front that go on to the NFL,
Yeah.
and Falk looks like he's the next up. Last season, going into the year, everyone was already giving last rites to Billy Napier,
Yeah.
based on what the schedule was, based on the questions at quarterback. Graham Mertz gets hurt, and DJ Lagway comes in, and he gets hurt a little bit, but they really exceeded expectations and won 8 games. And now all of a sudden, the script is flipped a little bit. They have nearly everybody back up front, playmakers in Jaden Baugh and Trey Wilson. And I think if Lagway stays healthy, the offense could really pop. This is a team, talk about a 180 preseason
Yeah.
expectation wise, but you mentioned it with Arkansas. This is another team with a schedule that is daunting, and it could be a better team, but the record may not show it.
Oh, I agree 100%. But you hit on it. It's DJ Lagway's health. Remember, he had a leg and a shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
This wasn't one thing. I mean, he's as physically gifted, as naturally talented as any quarterback you'll see in this sport. That's why, I wonder if they're going to limit the run game with him, especially in the games where you feel like you have a better team with that schedule. Those are going to be few and far between. But where I really think Florida has solidified themselves is the most important place to solidify yourself outside of quarterback, and that's on the line of scrimmage. When you see the
Mm-hmm.
defensive line they're going to roll out there, it's going to remind you of what Florida should look like. I thought they made some real good acquisitions in the transfer portal. I like the pieces they have around DJ. You look at Eugene Wilson, who's an NFL player. Pup's a really good player. I think if DJ stays healthy, this could be a team that, with that schedule, Mike, you go 9-3, you're going to have a chance.
Oh yeah, Caleb Banks, that's the guy I really like up front
Yeah.
for them. He's a
Yeah.
guy who can be a plan wrecker. You can say we're going to run the ball, and Caleb's going to say no, you're not. So
Without a doubt. When he puts his hands on you, you're in trouble.
yeah, um, little bit of a disappointment relative to the expectation in Athens, Georgia. I think was a little bit disappointed with the way things finished up. They got to the playoff, but they didn't do. They expect to be there every year in the championship game, or at least vying for it in the expanded format, at least vying in the semifinals. And that didn't happen. And you could see that the offense stagnated a little bit. Gunnar Stockton obviously did what he was asked to do. But they really upgraded their wide receiver core, getting Zachariah Branch and Noah Thomas, and they still have Dylan Bell and an excellent tight end room. So I think that their offense is going to improve, and the defense is the defense. I mean, C.J. Allen, the secondary that you've got back there. The defense I'm never worried about, but the offense I think may have a chance to really surprise and do some things.
Yeah, well, it's funny. They didn't just stagnate when Gunnar Stockton came in. I mean, outside of the second half against Bama, Carson
Mhm.
Beck, you feel like regressed and forced a lot of things last year. He obviously moves on and goes to Miami. The expectation at Georgia, if they don't win it, it's a disappointment, which is a high class problem. I'd love to have that problem for the team I root for. But yeah, the knock on Georgia's been, oh, well, it's been the game breakers at wide receivers. You've had guys in, they've gotten in trouble or they didn't pan out. This is as good of a lineup in that wide receiver room as Georgia's had since I can remember. And I'm glad you bring up Dylan Bell because everybody talks about the transfers. Dylan Bell's a freak. Like, he's a problem in himself. He's a guy that can
Yeah.
play inside and outside. He can make that 50-50 catch. He can body up a DB, and he can run by you. So Gunnar Stockton's going to have a lot of weapons. That defense, I mean, they're going to be on the all-bus team when they get off of it every time, every year. So I'm with you. I'm not worried about them as much. Replacing Malachi is going to be tough, but they churn out NFL players on that side of the ball like it's like Cracker Barrel does biscuits. So
Yeah.
I'm just if that wide receiver room steps up and they end up being what we think they can be, Georgia's going to have a really good chance to win it because I think Gunner's exactly what they need at quarterback.
Yeah, they're not going to necessarily ask him to go out and win the games. Just don't make mistakes. And Dylan Bell's dangerous on the jet sweeps and running the ball too. And
Yeah.
he's been in the return game before,
He's
so
a five
he's
tool
a
guy.
guy.
We hear that term in
Yeah,
baseball all the time. He's a 5 tool guy in football.
definitely. Um, Kentucky, this is another team like Arkansas. I'm not exactly sure what to make of them. They've had a little bit of a tumultuous offseason. I think the sledding could be tough on offense. I know that their offensive line returns 3, and they had a couple of good guys in the from the portal, and the secondary should be good, but the defense is only bringing back 5. I really think the biggest blow, though, was losing recruiting coordinator Vince Marrow.
Yeah.
He's a guy who has really pulled some of that level, that talent out of Ohio and some of the better guys from the Louisville and Lexington area. And he goes to Louisville. And I think there were some guys there was one guy who just flipped to Louisville automatically. And I think I don't know how much longer Mark Stoops is going to be around because they just look like a program that's trending the wrong way to me.
100%. I mean, like the fried chicken they're known for, I think Kentucky's cooked. Again, look, Calzada, I'm rooting for him. There's no personal animus against him. I just don't think he's good enough with the talent that's around him. With what they've lost, I mean, remember Berrien Brown transferred too, so he's gone to LSU. I think this Kentucky team, there's a possibility them and Mississippi State could be at the bottom of the barrel when you look at it. I think Mark Stoops. It's been a great story, but just like Little Red Riding Hood, just because it's a great story doesn't mean it ends well.
Yeah, she wasn't happy at the end of that, certainly.
No.
LSU, another one. Now
Yeah.
the expectations are starting. Brian Kelly, he's not backing down from it. They upgraded on defense through the portal. They have Nuss back. They have Caden Durham at running back, and they've got a really good receiving core. I love Aaron Anderson, and I think on defense, getting Harold Perkins back from injury, I think is going to make a difference. And you mentioned Berrien Brown. He's going to be able to give them an advantage in special teams. Not that they were bad there anyway, because they had a pretty good special teams unit. But Berrien's a guy who he finds one hole, boom. Your offense might not need to come out onto the field because you've scored with the special teams.
Yeah, I mean, there's no excuses now. I mean, Blake Baker's one of the highest paid coordinators in the country, and you feel like he has the personnel now to be able to really just compete with anybody when they walk out on the field. The offense with Nuss coming back, there's some questions on the offensive line, right? Anytime you lose some top guys like they did, including Will Campbell, who went off the board early in the NFL draft, you're going to have to replace them. But LSU recruits really well, had the #1 transfer portal class. When you look at some of the rankings, this team, if there's ever going to be a team that Brian Kelly has that you feel like is complete, it looks like this is the one. We still got to see on defense, even with those additions. And look, they could start 0-1 with a tough matchup at
Yeah.
Clemson, and end up still being the best team in the country. So the expectations are high for LSU. But they should be. And Brian Kelly has amassed this team to be able to take them that next step to get into that college football playoff and make some noise. So there's no excuse for LSU not to put a really, really fantastic product out in the field this year.
Yeah, that week one showdown with Clemson, that's going to be
Whew.
tiger on tiger.
Who's the real Death Valley? Like
That's
we're gonna
right.
see.
That's right. Mississippi State, things did not go as expected for Jeff Lebby when Blake Shapen went out early. I think that kind of was a little bit of an indicator that it would be a rebuild. I mean, he knew that he was going in. He didn't have a ton of talent, but Blake Shapen was expected to really kind of boost the offense. But Levy's too good of a mind to let that happen again. And in year two, his offenses usually pop. So I expect them to be a little bit better. They got bigger up front on defense. And that I think should help because they were really easy to run against last year. I don't think I think teams are going to have to work a little bit harder on D to ground out and grind the clock against Mississippi State this year.
Yeah, look, I think Mississippi State could be really improved, but you wouldn't necessarily see it from the result. I mean, their schedule is not a walk amongst the tulips, anyways,
Right.
and they still got some depth pieces they have to add all across this football team. I still think they're deficient, even with the size that they've added on the defensive line. And look, Jeff is an incredible offensive mind. He'll find ways to manufacture points, but it's a 4-quarter game, and I think you can't trick people for the whole game. And I just don't know if Mississippi State can hold up. It's still a rebuilding project there in Starkville. I think the fans understand that. I think Jeff will get it turned around eventually, but just not this year.
Yeah, when you're at a talent deficit, especially if you're in
Yeah,
the upper part of the Big Ten and the SEC, it usually doesn't go very well. You gotta talent is the biggest equalizer, and if you don't have it, you're probably going to be on the wrong end
for
of
sure.
things. Um, Missouri, they're another team that's kind of interesting to me. They obviously have been good under Drink, and they have a new quarterback in Bo Pribula, who came from Penn State. But really, the two big additions for me are Ahmad Hardy from Louisiana Monroe and Kevin Coleman from the aforementioned Mississippi State. The offensive line is solid, so Pribula should get protected. And I think what got lost in the shuffle is that Missouri was a top 20 defense last year in yards
Mhm.
allowed, and they have 9 guys back. So, but I do think the defense may need to carry things early while Pribula gets his feet underneath him.
Yeah, and we still have a lot of questions about Prabula as a passer. I think this Missouri offense is going to have to change their identity. I think it's going to be more of a ball control,
Mm-hmm.
downhill, spit out the quick game, the now screens, the bubbles, things like that, and play the long game with teams because you do bring up a great point in them returning 9 on a defense that, they don't have a ton of NFL talent, but they're always where they're supposed to be. They play the game the right way. They keep guys in front of them. They understand how to stay in their gap. But this is a Missouri team that's going to look a lot different than the one we've seen in the past couple of years, with Brady Cook and Luther Burden and some of the
Mm-hmm.
pieces that they've had. This is a team that needs to win games 24-17, not 45-42. I think Drink understands that, and it may work, but I just worry if they get in 3rd and long, how good Bo is as a passer to be able to extend drives against defenses that can play with an even box and stop the run.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. Although he does bring up a little bit of the RPO dynamic, and he can take off and run the
Yeah,
ball. So third and medium, I think, could be a challenge for opposing defenses because then you've got some options. So it'll
yeah.
be interesting to follow them. One of the other, along with Florida, that big things are expected this year, or at least improvement, is Oklahoma. And Brent Venables, obviously a very, very crucial year for him. Certainly helped to get John Mateer in at quarterback. And Mateer is good enough on his own, but getting OC Ben Arbuckle to come with him from Washington State, that's going to be a problem for opposing defenses. And I don't think on defense that folks are talking enough about Oklahoma's defensive line and secondary. Both of them have experience and talent, and I think those two units actually could be real difference makers for them.
Well, I think, you can make the argument Oklahoma may have the best backfield in the country with Mateer
Mm-hmm.
and then getting Jaden Ott, who's an NFL back. from Cal. He's got to stay healthy, but shoot, I have to stay healthy to do my job.
Right.
I mean, everybody knows that. The schedule's brutal. Them and I think Oklahoma, Wisconsin have the two hardest schedules in the country. That Michigan game at home week 2 is massive because again, if they get to 9-3 with that schedule, I think they'll have a chance to get in the playoff because of strength of schedule alone. But yeah, again, the defense, obviously you lose Billy Bowman, you lose Stutzman, but there's some really good pieces coming back, including the secondary and the defensive line. I mean, our Mason Thomas is a heck of a player as well. But what I'm interested to see with Oklahoma is can the offensive line get back to where it normally is under Bill Biedenbaugh?
Yeah.
And look, the injuries last year was an anomaly, whether it's wide receiver, whether it's just in general. You look at that offensive line. Mateer can get you out of some problems, but that offensive line is going to have to get back to what they do best if this team's going to do the things that I think they can possibly do. But if they get hot, and maybe a couple teams on the schedule they play aren't as good as what we thought, I think Oklahoma is a sneaky pick to make the college football playoff.
Yeah, I like them a lot. I'm gambling a little bit. I've got them flirting with the top 10, but you're right. That schedule does kind of worry me a little bit. But if Mateer is as good as he was last year with not a ton of talent around him at Washington State, I'm thinking that he could be
Yeah.
a really maybe even a historic year in Norman. So that will definitely be one that's interesting to follow. Ole Miss, the Jackson Dart era is over. And Lane has to kind of not start over. I mean, Austin Simmons played, and I know that they're expecting a lot of big things from him. They've got a great receiving core. I don't think that they're getting talked about enough. Deshaun Stribling, guys like that. Um, but there are concerns about the offensive line. Guy I really love, maybe my favorite player in the SEC, Suntarine Perkins.
Yeah.
That guy is sideline to sideline, a monster. He just plays for 60 minutes, and he's kind of the heart and soul, I think, of their defense. And if Ole Miss is going to be able to knock off some of the big boys, I actually think the defense is what's going to help them out.
Well, I think that's one of the ways that Ole Miss is elevated is they become more balanced as a team because that defense under Pete Golding, what he's been able to do there has given them a chance to win games in multiple ways, not just try and outscore you and hold on for dear life when the defense runs out there. You bring up Perkins, he's probably the best defensive player that nobody talks about.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he could sell hot dogs during the game too. He does so much for him. I'm so interested to see Austin Simmons. I don't think enough people are talking about him either. We have a very small sample size, but people forget he came in against Georgia last year and led a touchdown drive in a moment where they really had to have it when Jackson was out. So Lane's going to find a way for that offense to be good. They've got to run the ball better this year. That was kind of the bugaboo against them last year. It
Yep.
cost them the Kentucky game and a spot in the college football playoff because they couldn't consistently run the ball. But if they figure that out, I think Austin Simmons is a guy that by week 7, week 8 is going to be a household name in college football. He's that talented. And oh, by the way, if it doesn't work out on the gridiron, he could probably go pitch in Major League Baseball here in the next 3 years anyway.
Yeah, he's definitely got some Kyler Murray sort of skill set there. So that'll be another one to watch. Another team getting buzzed, like Florida, South Carolina. Lenora Sellers, one of the more exciting players in the league at quarterback. The offense, I think, could be really, really lethal. I know they're waiting for a decision on Razul Thomas at running back, but they've still got some guys back there. I do think there are a few maybe holes on defense, but man, Dylan Stewart, if people don't enjoy watching that kid play,
Yeah.
then they don't like college football because Dylan Stewart is just a monster.
Yeah, he's a freak. I mean, Dylan Stewart, you look at him and Colin Simmons. I mean, those two guys are just incredible for young
One
players
and one
playing that
A, one
position.
and one A among
Yeah.
defensive ends.
I mean, just absolute freak shows. It seems like South Carolina always stays with one. But, I think the biggest question about South Carolina is can that front 7 on defense do what they did last year? They lost Kennard. They lost a couple other pieces. And can the offensive line continue to elevate? If they're able to do that, South Carolina with Lenore Sellers and Nicholas Harbor and some of the other pieces they have on that offense can be deadly. I just wonder, I don't think people understood how good South Carolina was on the defensive side of the ball last year
Mm-hmm.
and how many games that kept them in. So it's good. Shane has been building for these moments. You feel like that they're ready to knock that door down. And if some guys can step up in that front 7, South Carolina's got a really good chance to do it.
Yeah, and Josiah Thompson is an up and comer on the offensive line. He played
Yeah.
great as a freshman, and he's he could be one of those All-America types. And it's odd that a young guy might be your best offensive lineman, but he's just a road grader in the run game, especially. So
Mm-hmm.
so when Lenoris tucks it and runs, he's probably going to be running right behind him.
Yeah.
Tennessee, they obviously did not end the season the way that they wanted to, going into the horseshoe and getting smoked by Ohio State in the playoffs. And then Nico decides to leave in a pretty ballyhooed dispute, I guess, over NIL. So I don't want to say starting over. Joey Aguilar has a lot of experience at quarterback, so it's not like they are hurting necessarily, but I think they were banking on the next few years, Nico
Mm-hmm.
being there. But the back seven on defense is really good. And I think that might be the group that needs to carry the day while Aguilar gets his feet under him. And they replace so many guys with Dylan Stewart gone, or
Dylan Sampson, yeah.
Dylan Sampson gone, and the receivers. I mean, Squirrel White transferred to Florida State. They don't have a lot of proven guys there. So I think the defense is going to need to carry the day for Tennessee early.
Yeah, if you thought they had to lean on the defense last year, I think it's going to be twofold this season. And they lost some pieces there. I mean, James Pierce leaving, a guy that was hell on wheels on that defensive line, but they've done a good job recruiting. Hypes, loaded up that defensive side of the ball enough where they feel like they can compete year in and year out. And you bring up a great point. Losing the quarterback, everybody's talking about that, but you lost a lot of other pieces as well. With Aguilar, where he gets in trouble, he's got a ton of ability, but he is a gunslinger to the fullest, and he will put the ball in harm's way. He cannot put this Tennessee team in bad situations, regardless of how good the defense is, if they're going to have a chance to repeat and go back to the college football playoffs. So in a world full of new quarterbacks at big places, Tennessee, you feel like it's gone around the merry-go-round twice. We'll see if it works out or not, but this could end up being a 7-5, 8-4 year for the Vols.
Yeah, and it was kind of like a straight up switch. Aguilar was at
Yeah.
UCLA, Nico went, so he left and went to Tennessee. And to his gunslinger mentality, you can do that at App State when until last year you were pretty much better than everybody else, and you could overcome that. But that's not going to fly in the SEC. If
No,
he's throwing 2-3 interceptions in a game, it's going to be a real uphill climb.
for sure.
Texas Longhorns. I know that people are really talking about them big time. Sark obviously has made the Final Four 2 years in a row. They had Ewers. He was kind of banged up. Now, a lot of people are saying that Arch might be the face of college football, but I really think that the defense is positioning them to be really good. I mean, we've mentioned Colin Simmons a bunch already. Anthony Hill at linebacker is really good. Malik Muhammad. I mean, they've got guys at every level. But as good as those guys are, Michael Taft Jr. to me seems like the real, I guess, determining factor. He is a guy who just goes out and plays and hits guys, and he can turn the ball over. He's got to be like 30 years old already because it seems like he's been around forever. But I actually think the defense is what's going to put Texas in the spotlight this season.
Yeah, well, I think the three teams with the best roster around a new quarterback are Texas, Ohio State, and Alabama. Taft is the leader of that defense. He's a coach on the field. He's going to make sure everybody's lined up, everybody's prepared, and then he may not be the most athletic, but he always finds a way to make an impact. So this Texas team around Arch, who, it's almost going to be impossible for him to live up to the hype because the bar is so high. But again, kind of like we talked about with some of these other guys, you don't have to go out there and be the superhero. You just got to operate this offense. The offensive line is going to be good. You're going to have weapons around you. Sark's going to put you in a position to have success. And then you should have a really good defense to lean on. So, we're going to find out a lot of answers early when Texas goes into the horseshoe and plays Ohio State. That's going to be an incredible week one matchup. I can't wait for it. Two young quarterbacks that are new starters going at it. So this Texas team is going to be really good regardless what happens in that first game. But as far as Arch goes, he is the face of college football. Now, whether that face ends up smiling or frowning, we're yet to know.
Yeah, and I didn't mention their backfield. I mean, Contravian Wisner and C.J. Baxter being healthy now, that's, I think, going to potentially take some pressure off of Arch. They'll be able to have a 1-2 punch in the backfield.
For sure.
I think folks are forgetting a little bit about Texas A&M. I know that year one of Mike Elko, just the culture certainly seemed different from what Jimbo had, and they looked like a better team, but they got banged up a little bit. And Marcel Reed, I don't think people talk about him as one of the better quarterbacks in the league. Maybe better might be the wrong word. Dynamic. He
Yeah.
certainly is a guy who's exciting out there. And Le'Veon Moss and Reuben Owens Jr., that's a really lethal running game. And how many teams have all of their offensive line starters back? I mean, Armaj Reed Adams and Chase Basantis especially are two guys who I think have really, really bright futures, and they're going to help. They do need to shore things up a little bit on defense, but Torian York, that you can get, I'll take him on my team any day of the week.
Yeah. Yeah, well, not enough people are talking about Marcel Reed, a guy that came in as a young player as the starter when they had to have him and had a lot of success. You go through the ups and downs. He had a lot of ups. That offense you feel like is complete. And I think, everybody makes the 8-4 jokes. Every year is different. Even if you return a lot of guys, the roster is still different. The coaching staff is different. I don't buy into, curses or whatever that is. But the thing with the A&M that I think is the most intriguing is that Mike Elko gets every ounce of juice out of the squeeze of his players. And now he's working with some of the top talent in college football. Do not be surprised at all if this A&M team takes the next step this year and really has a chance in 2 years to make some noise. I'm excited to see them get over the hump. And with that schedule, playing Notre Dame and some of the teams they're going to run into, I'm excited to see Marcel because I think he has a chance to be really special.
Yeah, definitely. A&M is one of those teams kind of get them now while you can, because you may not be able to get them in a couple of years. Vanderbilt, Diego Pavia, kind of, and I like to see this, kind of talking a little bit about the Big Ten. If you want to play the big games, you come to the SEC. Never mind that he's 0-2 against the Big Ten. Not all of them at Vanderbilt, but no, Clark Lee has done what I think a lot of people thought couldn't be done. I mean, James Franklin looked like he was the outlier when he had Vanderbilt being good. It's just so hard in Nashville sometimes to win. But Clark Lee has them being very respectable. They started the year last year upsetting Virginia Tech, and it just kind of got going. So with Pavia and Eli Stowers, I think that's an offense that could be a little bit of a problem for people. The defense to me is largely nameless, but very good. I love Martel Height and Randon Fontenette in the secondary. Those are two guys who, if people don't know them, they may know them by the end of the year. Because I think Vanderbilt, they'll want to turn people over and make some explosive plays on offense to get things going.
Well, I mean, the thing I think Clark Lee's done the best, and Barton Simmons as well, got to give him a shout out, is they've made this roster competitive. And from a depth standpoint, too, Vanderbilt struggled so much on the line of scrimmage competing against these other SEC teams. And I think they've really given themselves a chance, to grab one or two guys at the skill position and cause some problems. And that's what they've done. I mean, Stowers, you're looking at, could be the number one overall tight end going into the NFL draft or whatever you want to call him. I mean, he's a guy that can do so many things. But I'm interested to see how Vanderbilt is when they don't sneak up on people, because they're not going to sneak up on anybody this year. So, teams are taking you more serious than ever before. I like Diego talking. I'd rather you be confident than not confident. As far as the Big Ten, don't let facts get in the way of a great story there, Mike.
Yeah, I know. What are you going to do? And Stowers, I mean, he used to play quarterback. So I love those kind of the converted quarterback. We saw it years ago with Matt Jones at Arkansas. And so I like these big guys. Him and Max Clare, to me, are the two best tight ends in college football this year. With apologies to Oscar Delp, because he's up there too. SEC has some really good ones at that position. We're going to move on now. Something I like to call true false. I'm going to give 5 questions. I know you didn't know there was going to be studying or math involved, but
hopefully it's not math or I'm in trouble.
No, it's not math, because I would be in trouble as well. But just some general questions about some teams or situations in the SEC and get your gauge on them. First one, true or false? This will be Sam Pittman's final season at Arkansas.
True. And the funny part is, I think that could be if it goes good or bad. I think it's to the point now where, a lot of people thought Sam wouldn't be there after the way it's kind of gone down the last couple years. I think by this time next year, he'll be at the lake with a beer in his hand. So I'm going to say true.
That is not a bad place to be, by the way.
No, it's not.
Second one, Hugh Freeze gets Auburn on the right side of 500.
I think true. I think true. I think this roster makes them a lot more competitive. Now, is 7-5 going to be enough to make the Auburn fans feel better? Probably not. It better be the right 7-5, and one of those seven better be Bama or Georgia. But I do think this Auburn team in year three, with that offensive line especially, gets to at least 7 wins. I'm going to say true.
Third one, two teams with grueling schedules, and both are getting some buzz. Oklahoma has a better season than Florida.
Yeah, this is a good one. I'm gonna say false. I'm gonna say false. I think at the end of the day, the schedule is going to be a little bit too much for Oklahoma. I'm going to say Florida. I think Florida's probably going to go 9-3 and Oklahoma 8-4.
Yeah, I really couldn't tell either. I was
I mean,
looking neither of them have any walks in the park really, except maybe a non-conference game here and there,
mhm.
but they're going to be tested each week. And if it's a tie, I won't say if they end up with the same record, then I'm going to say that you're right on that one.
Even
I'll
Stevens,
chalk
I'll
that up
take it.
for you. Fourth question. The SEC gets 5 teams into the college football playoff.
False. I think they get 4. I look around the league and there's going to be some really good teams. I don't see, that many elite teams. Then the question becomes, all right, well, who else in college football in the other 3 major conferences is going to get the heavier end? I don't think anybody's going to get more than 4 in. I think 4 is going to be the high end, so I'm going to go false.
Yeah, I was thinking because I really don't think, could Miami pop in the ACC? Maybe, but I think the ACC isn't guaranteed more than one. Big 12, they're all going to cannibalize themselves and may only get 2. Notre Dame will be in, but it could happen. I tend to agree with you that it's probably going to cap out at 4, but would I be absolutely shocked if the Big Ten or SEC happen to sneak one last one in, maybe as the 12 seed? No, but I'll go with you as false. And then last but not least, going to 9 league games is the best long-term solution for the SEC.
For the SEC, so you didn't say for college football. So you said for the SEC. I'm going to say false. Because you're guaranteed to probably play somebody outside of Mississippi State and Kentucky, and who knows, that's pretty good. I'll put my coaching hat on here. I'd rather play East Texas A&M or somebody.
Right.
So for the SEC, false. For all of college football, I think everybody should play the same amount of conference games. I think
Yes.
that makes it even as possible. So for the SEC, false. For all of college football, true.
Yeah, whether it's 8 or 9, I'm 100% in lockstep with you. I think everyone should be playing the same amount of conference games, even though not all conferences are created equal. It at least is a baseline so that when you're doing a comparison,
Yep.
everyone played 9. These guys didn't play 8, so I like that. All right, time to have the rubber meet the road. What are your picks for the
Okay.
SEC title game?
Well, we make our official predictions at the end of fall camp, but I'll give you a little bit where I'm leaning right now. I think the SEC championship game is going to be between Georgia and LSU.
That is a very interesting one. I agree with you on Georgia. I do think that Texas, because even if they lose that game to Ohio State early, they have enough opportunities that even with one loss, maybe even with 2, that they should safely be in. And by the end of the year, with Arch having his feet under him and assuming they stay healthy, I think Texas could be really dangerous. They do obviously have a couple of landmines on the schedule, but we've talked about their roster. There's no reason that they can't go 12-0. So I have Georgia and Texas, but I would not be the least bit shocked if LSU was in. And then wrapping it up, which teams do you think we both said that we think it's going to be 4? Which teams do you think actually make it in to the college football playoff from the SEC?
All right, I'm going to say Georgia, LSU, Texas, and Texas A&M.
There you go, going off the board. I like that with the A&M pick. I've got Georgia, Texas, LSU, and I really can't decide between Alabama and Florida. I will probably go with Alabama just because I think by the end of the year Ty Simpson will feel comfortable, and I think that the ground game will work. But if Florida were to replace Alabama, that would not shock me. And I do think that this might also be the year that you could get an SEC team in the championship game. I know that they were bruised. Texas didn't like not making it. Georgia didn't like not making it. I think that you're going to see one SEC team in the national championship game.
Yeah, I mean, again, heck, at the end of the day, it wouldn't shock me if they got two.
Yeah, I mean that certainly could happen. Certainly not out of the question. I know that it's a landmine though that you kind of have to navigate once you get into the postseason. So definitely counting the days till we're actually strapping it up for real. Shout out your socials if folks want to find you.
Yeah, look, it's really easy. It's my name, Jake Crain _ on all social media. Is just my name on Facebook. You can find our show, Crain and Company. Easiest place to find us is on YouTube. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Roku, all that stuff too. But yeah, come hang out with us.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for coming in. Always entertaining when you are in the house, and hopefully, as she gets older, your little one will have you starting to run around like you did in your athletic days.
Yeah, she's already. I'm so worried about when she can start moving, because then you got to start playing a little zone defense, which I implemented but wasn't great at. But no, Mike, thanks so much for having me, buddy. Anytime you need me.
All right, you take it easy. We will catch up down the road.
All right, buddy. See ya.
See ya.